Jaylee. Today, because many people are celebrating the spooky season with Halloween just a couple days away, I wanted to talk about a spooky subject. It's not the boogeyman or the kukui. It's not bats and goblins. It's boundaries. So, if you're anything like me, boundaries may cause you to feel a little fluttering in your stomach, a little knot in your gut, and that's okay. So I just want to first start off with acknowledging that boundaries has never been my favorite B word. And as a whole grown ass therapist myself, I've been preaching this stuff and still working on practicing it. So I just want to start off with that disclaimer that because of my own identities, I'm also still working on it. So let's just get that on the table. And secondly, I did also want to acknowledge that I'm looking at my little notitas because I'm a real human who can only, hold certain stuff in my brain. So, but I still wanted to make sure that I highlighted 4 things that might make boundaries spooky and 4 things that hopefully take away some of the spookiness from it and show us that we deserve and need to establish these boundaries. So maybe something that you can hold on to. So reason number 1 why boundaries might seem spooky for some people is that we might perceive conflict, right? Confrontation. And maybe somebody will get upset at us. So maybe they'll make us feel unsafe. We all want safety. So that's just like a pretty core need for many of us. And if maybe we didn't grow up seeing healthy conflict, like people being able to talk through a disagreement and actually still be okay and not, cut each other off for years, that might be hard to believe, but healthy conflict is a thing. I'll talk more about that in the next 4 things, but that's one thing. Second one is maybe we perceive that we're going to lose a relationship or a connection. So we are people who want to belong. As I mentioned in the one before, maybe if we have a history of people being cut off because they try to set a boundary or they've had some disagreement on something, that might feel unsafe for us. And that might seem like we're going to lose this relationship and I'd rather keep this relationship, even if low-key I'm a little resentful, then lose it. So that's number 2. Number 3 is maybe we perceive like we're being a bad partner, child, daughter, husband, wife, mom, because of our culture or because of the expectations that were set up on us. So let's say most of our lives functioned as kind of like high achieving, perfectionist, or people pleasing. Maybe we never really had the practice of saying like, no, actually, I don't want to go, or like, I can't let you borrow my car. Then setting a boundary might feel really uncomfortable. It might be like, wow, I'm really like being a bad person right now. But you're not being a bad person. I'll tell you why more later, but just another reason why it might seem spooky. And then number 4, anxiety. Anxiety is spooky as heck. I don't like to feel anxious. I don't think most people like to feel anxious, but for many of us, these what ifs are really trying to protect us. And we sometimes can mistake like avoidance as control. So it's like, if I don't say anything, then I don't have to deal with it and I'm in control of the situation because they won't come at me in this way. In reality, that's usually not the case because whatever the issue is, it's probably still going to be floating around. We're just kind of like pretending that we don't see it, but it's still there. So 4, anxiety. And again, we are people who like certainty and not being sure how another person is going to respond to our boundary setting. It's not very certain. So that anxiety might try to creep in and make it really spooky for us. So now to jump into 4 things that I hope that you just remember as you start to practice boundaries is 1, that boundaries protect our values, our needs, and our relationships. Because if you think about it, think about that last time that you said yes to something that you really wanted to say no to. If you're anything like me, you probably felt a little bit resentful, and that's most people. So resentfulness can really creep in and tarnish relationships. And though it feels like you're protecting your relationship because you're saying yes, you might actually be harming it a little bit. Again, no shame, no blame here. I'm just calling it how I see it that might be happening. 2 is that clear is kind. So I know that for a lot of us, like we don't want to be unkind, we don't want to seem mean. But if you think about it, if we don't really let people know the truth of how we're feeling or what we need or don't want to do or how we want to spend our time or our money, we're low key lying a little bit, just a little bit. And clear is kind, truth and love. That's a statement that I've heard and I just really love, because we need to be honest with the people that we love. And number 3 is that vulnerability and honesty actually strengthen our relationships, especially if it's produced in a healthy conflict. So let's say I disagree on something and then we can explore like why. Well, like actually for me, this matters a little bit more. Usually at the end of a healthy conflict, there is a greater understanding of what really matters to a person, because conflict and uncomfortable emotions like anxiety, anger, all these other maybe emotions that, like I said, are uncomfy, they usually point towards some value of ours, something important. Maybe it's fairness, maybe it's justice, maybe it's being seen, understood, appreciated, right? And being able to advocate for ourselves can help also highlight for ourselves and our partners or our family members something that is of value for us. And last but not least, setting boundaries can be reparenting for our inner child. So it's a way to protect what are the needs and the values that are really deep inside. And how do we make sure that this little inner niña right here, her time and her needs and her space is protected? And what's cool is that if you're a parent, you can also model this for your own children. So let's say my daughter comes up to me and says, I want to do this and that. I can set a boundary and say, sorry, mija, right now I am doing this. I love you very much, but we're not going to be able to do that today, right? Instead of saying, yes, whatever you need, because that's also not healthy. Kids, grown-ups, everybody should have boundaries. They protect us. They keep us safe. And I'm just a big advocate for like modeling what we want our kids to have, especially if maybe you come from a generation or a lineage of people who weren't able to set boundaries, whether that's because of cultural or systemic or other barriers or obstacles. I think that we can be respectful and kind and still set boundaries. So I'm not saying go ahead and yell at everybody and tell them, no, this and you better this. No, we can be respectful with it. And I think as long as we are feeling aligned with our values and our needs at the time and intentions, the hope is that the healthy relationships will thrive and the other relationships will start to see like, oh, okay, like Joanna has boundaries now, or like she doesn't say yes like she used to do all the time, and that they'll still love us through it, right? Because you deserve to be loved with your boundaries and all. So yeah, in this honor of spooky season, I hope that you learned a little bit more about boundaries, and I'm going to have a whole plática on boundaries on Halloween, October 31st, 3 p.m. on Zoom. I hope to do this yearly, so if it's somewhere not around Halloween, hit me up at connectwithjaylee.com. You can find all my contact information there. All right, bye y'all.